Hey guys, it's Friday, October 20th, and I have a big project to finish today. I need to finish filling a new raised bed and plant my garlic. So here is my new Vigo bed. It is 17 inches high, 3.5 feet wide by 3.5 feet wide. I put it here to replace one of my low wooden raised beds that were kind of falling apart and full of weeds. Here's the other one that I will need to replace as well. You can't even see it in all those weeds. So I started this project, I don't know, a week or so ago, and got all the hard stuff done. Now I just got to put more dirt in, some compost in, and put in the garlic. All right, so what I did to remove the bed, first I pulled all the weeds, then I tried unscrewing the boards, and the screwdriver would only, it was, what do you call it? It was just spinning on the, anyway, I couldn't get all the boards out, and then I got my husband to help one day, and then we found out that it had chicken wire stapled all under the bottom of the wooden raised bed. So once we figured that out, I was able to move some soil, start cutting through the wire, and then I could pull the board the rest of the way out of the way. I ended up leaving the chicken wire because there was a pile of soil I was going to keep using, so that's still under there. Then I had to push in the soil from the edges because this bed is a little bit smaller than the previous bed. And then I used this contractor paper that when we had our kitchen redone, the contractors left a roll of this behind. It's great. It's super thick, not as thick as cardboard, but if you use several layers, I think it'll have the same effect to hopefully suppress the weeds. We'll see. And so now all that's left is to put a few more bags of soil and compost to fill up the bed a little more, and then I'll be planting my garlic. Okay, we'll start with this. I don't really have any rhyme or reason for the soil that I picked out, but it was what was on sale at the feed store recently, and I love getting soil at the feed store because you can order it online and then just drive up and they'll put it in your trunk. And then I drive my car up the side yard and unload it right next to the garden gate, which is a lot easier than unloading it in the driveway. I do that when I buy chicken feed too. I drive right up to the coop in my regular car. It's one of the nice things about not having a fence, but there are definitely drawbacks too. Alright, so this stuff is called Harvest Supreme. They call it a soil amendment. It's organic. Premium soil amendment with 15% chicken manure. Ooh, that reminds me, I was going to put a layer of my chicken, I cleaned out the coop, so I was going to put a layer of the litter that I cleaned out for more fertilizer. It's pretty barky. But then I also have a bag of compost and a bag of planting mix. I'm thinking maybe I'll use the chicken manure as mulch. It's pine shavings and chicken manure. I think I'm gonna try that. All right, so what do I want next? Compost? I guess I will do the compost first. Planting mix. All right, looks good. Now all I need to do is get my garlic ready to plant and then stick it in the ground. This year I am planting Susanville garlic, which I bought, I think from looks like Territorial Seed Company. Yeah, Territorial Seed Company, and they're in Oregon. I've never planted this variety before, but I heard from a local gardening group that a lot of people really like this, so we'll try it out. And then if that's not enough, here's 3 from last year's or this year's harvest that, and then unfortunately I had 2 varieties last year. I didn't pay attention to which was which when I harvested them, so I have no idea what these are, but they were the big ones, and you want to plant the biggest ones, the biggest cloves anyway. So I'm just gonna set these aside because I don't know if I'm gonna use them or not. Here's my backup plan, and then I'm gonna start breaking these open. So, like I said, it's best to take the large outer cloves. This is soft neck garlic, which is the only type I've ever actually planted before. I just like it because it lasts longer and it also gives you more garlic per bulb. It lasts longer in storage. So, but one of these years I'll probably try hard neck, because hard neck garlic will give you the scapes, the garlic scapes, which are like the flour that I've never actually eaten those, but supposedly they're really yummy, so it might be worth trying. So I'm just gonna separate these. Last year with my seed garlic, I ended up having way more than I had room to plant, and it was still in perfectly good shape for eating. So I think what I did with that was I froze some of them whole, and then I also freeze dried a whole bunch of it, and now I have garlic powder from that. So if you haven't planted garlic before, each one of these, this is the root end where it's a little kind of scratchy. That's where the roots of the bulb originally were. And then the pointy end is where the plant will come out. And so you basically plant them in the ground, pointy side up. And then in some climates, it might just start sprouting right away. In others, it will wait until early spring. But either way is fine. I've had it, usually for me, because especially when I was in California, it would always sprout before, in the fall. Last year, I planted garlic, I think around this exact same time, and it did sprout before winter, and it was totally fine, so I'm not worried about it. All right, I don't know if you can see, but this is what I've got so far. I'm trying to visualize how many rows I'm gonna end up with. I think I'll do like about 4 inches apart. I think I'm definitely gonna need more of these. Maybe I'm gonna mix it up with some of these after all. And I'm probably not gonna mark which is which, but this year I should be able to tell which is which, because the Susanville ones the skins are completely white, and the ones that I planted from last season have some purple streaking on them. So once I harvest, I'll know which is which, except I still don't know what variety this one is, so it is what it is. All right, so now I'm gonna do is just go in, and I'll start over here, scrape a little trough. I'm tempted to wet this down first. Nah. I'm gonna do rows like this and try to keep them roughly 4 inches apart. Already not very straight, but that's okay. I don't think the garlic will mind. We got a bonus one. Not my best work, but it'll work. And I'll just start putting them in about 4 to 6 inches apart and kind of nestle them in a little bit. These gloves are more trouble than they're worth. now I'm gonna just nestle them a little bit deeper and then cover them up. All right, I'm calling it good. All right, now it's time for chicken poop. Might as well probably just dump some of this. It needs to be faster to dump it. Okay, so I have mixed feelings about using straw as mulch. I have used this type before, which is, they call it seeding straw. It's meant to be put over, if you like reseed your lawn, you put this as a layer on top of it, and it's meant to keep the seeds from blowing away or the birds from getting them all. And they have something they call it with tackifier. Honestly, I don't know what exactly that is, but it's just meant to sort of hold the straw and keep it, make it less likely to blow away. So I used a brand in my California garden called Easy Straw with tack, and that product still exists, but I can't find it anywhere locally. I can't find it to buy. Well, I could find it to buy online, but then they would charge a ton to ship it, so that's not worth it. Last year I used bales of straw from the feed store, and one of those bales was especially seedy, and I ended up with wheatgrass all over my garden, really bad. So I don't want to use the bales from the feed store anymore. This is a bag that my mom found online, and she only needed a little bit, so she gave me the rest. So I'm gonna try this on top of the chicken poop. So ultimately what I want is about a 2 to 3 inch thick layer of mulch, and the mulch, so I'll count the chicken bedding as partially as mulch, but it's also fertilizer. And then this, and what that will do is help hold moisture in the soil for, especially in the springtime when the rain starts to slow down and into the summer. We don't really need it so much because it rains all starting, you know, it's been raining off and on for a while now. It's coming back on Sunday. So we don't, you know, it'll be here till June at least, the rain. So, you know, losing water isn't so much of a concern, but if you don't cover the soil with something, you're also more likely to get tons of weeds coming up. So that's what I'm trying to avoid the most. I like this better than the bale straw because it's chopped up. It's a lot smaller and it's easier to work with than the long strands that come in the bales of straw. Oops, making a mess. I tried putting some of that leftover bale straw in it was in the greenhouse, and I needed to get it out of there. And I thought, hey, I will put it in the nesting boxes for my chickens. And so I made it all nice and fluffy in there for them instead of pine shavings, which is what I normally would use. And I don't know, I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks maybe just 2 weeks went by, and I started thinking, I guess they're slowing down laying eggs for the winter already. And then, you know, whatever. But then, you know, a week or so later, I went in and I did the coop cleaning. So I went all the way into the coop, and behind the big door was, I took a picture. There was a whole like nest in the main area of the coop, not in the nesting boxes. This corner with like, I don't know, 3 dozen eggs. So my chickens sent me the message loud and clear that they did not enjoy the feed store straw in their nesting boxes. So I won't ever be trying that again. I went back to pine shavings. Had to throw away all those eggs because I had no idea how long they'd actually been there. So, lesson learned. All right. So now, this is it. You can just ignore this until it's time to harvest, or until your rain slows down. You know, if you live in a dry area, you'll have to at least water it once in a while. But I can basically ignore this until June, and I don't even need to water it right now because the rain's coming, but I'm gonna go ahead and do that a little bit anyway, because that'll just help keep this mulch, you know, from blowing away right away. I'm gonna go find my hose. So first up we have my Opalka tomato experiment. This is the tomato plant that I started as a winter sown seed, you know, like well before it was time to plant tomatoes. And it sprouted, and when it was super tiny, like only like an inch tall, I planted it here in the ground, knowing that, you know, I can't remember when that was. It might have been June or late June or July. So I knew, you know, it was gonna be behind, and it is, but look at that. I'm getting a few tomatoes that are ripening. I've already picked 2 huge ones that matured enough that I can, I'm saving the seeds from. So those will be next year's tomato, and I am going to plant a lot more of these next year. I've planted these in the past and I really liked them because they're super meaty and they're great for sauce. So yeah, after processing sauce tomatoes all summer and seeing how many, even Romas, it took just to make some sauce, I definitely think I want to go back to using these meatier ones. Right next to the new garlic bed, we have the other square, very low bed that was put in by the previous owners. This one I also bought a second Vigo bed that I was going to put in this spot. But after that ordeal of getting the first one up, I'm like not super excited to get going on that project. I'm probably going to plant onions in that bed, which can wait until the spring. So I might just tarp this thing in the meantime to kill off the weeds, make them easier to pull off when it's time. And speaking of tarping, these ginormous, by the way, ginormous zucchinis, I grew them all that big on purpose to give to my chickens. We don't like zucchinis in this house. I probably won't do this again in the future because my chickens don't even seem like they like it that much. They do eat it, but they don't go crazy for it. So I don't think I'm going to dedicate any of my garden space to zucchinis or squashes, except pumpkins next year. This is last year's garlic and onion bed that got completely consumed with grass and all kinds of weeds. I tarped it a few weeks ago, just like I said, to try and kill off some of the weeds. The state of this bed is the main reason I decided to put the garlic in a new bed, because I just did not feel like I had it in me to deal with this in time for planting garlic. Let's see what it looks like underneath. Yeah, gross. Yeah, it'll just stay that way for a while. The bags of compost on top are just there to hold down the tarp, which that works pretty well. And let's see, I don't even think I can get through this way. We'll go around. So this bed was the zucchini bed, and also I had green beans on the other side. next year I'm thinking this might be onions, or at least half onions and half green beans. I liked having the green beans in this bed because it's one of my taller beds. It's probably about, I don't know, 16 inches tall, which when you're picking green beans, it's a lot easier than having to like bend over to the ground. I like being able to pull up a stool and just sit there and pull the green beans because it takes quite a while. There's a lot of green beans to pick. So I know I'm for sure going to put more green beans in here, bush beans, and then yeah, probably onions in the other, where the zucchini was. This was my broccoli bed. I also had carrots and cilantro in here. My broccoli I harvested all the way in July. I have a video on that. It was beautiful garlic. It was beautiful broccoli, even though it was well into summer, and normally that it would have gone to seed, but I lucked out and it didn't go to seed, and it was great. So this might be broccoli again in the spring. I did pull all the plants and weeds out of this one, and then I just put the tarp for now because I don't want weeds moving in the meantime. And then we have still tomatoes here, which we've had a series of rain, periodic rain, a few days with lots of rain. And so what happens, I did not deal with this in California because it didn't rain in the summer or hardly at all. When it does rain though, that your tomatoes, especially the ones that are already starting to blush, will split. And the first time I knew rain was coming, I went out and I picked all my Roma tomatoes that were just starting to blush and let them ripen inside. And that did seem to work. So it's just a new thing I have to do now that I live in this climate. But I still have some tomatoes. So I haven't pulled the tomatoes yet because we have not had a frost yet. For my area, the average first frost is the average last frost is between October 21st, which is tomorrow, and October 31st. There is nothing showing frost in the 10-day forecast currently, so I'm just gonna let these tomatoes hang on, especially the Opalka ones, as long as they can before the frost comes, and then when I know it's coming, then I'll pull all the remaining ripening tomatoes and then just let the plants die. Then we have my pepper bed, which I'm pretty sure is overrun with, I think this is crabgrass. Very discouraging. And my zinnias that I put down the middle of the peppers got way bigger than I ever expected. I grew zinnias in California, but you know, I just couldn't water as abundantly in California, and plants like this did not get nearly this big, so I didn't know that this was going to happen. And they basically shaded out my peppers pretty badly. Plus the peppers were already kind of stunted to begin with because I put them in, I think, a little too soon. I'm going to wait a lot longer next year. The year before that, I planted peppers right after we moved in, and it was like mid-July before they went in the ground, and they did so well in this exact same bed. I only had 4 plants, and I got tons of peppers that year. So I'm glad I had that experience because now I know that peppers can do well here. That this isn't just because of my new climate, this is user error. And I've been pulling zinnia heads and saving them in a bucket because I am going to plant, like, now that I know how big, and they just look so cheerful, and when there's just a huge row of them, cheerful and colorful, and the blooms last a really, really long time. My husband and I are going to plant these from seed out in the long bed in the front yard. I have petunias there now, but I think this will be even better. So I'm saving all the seeds I can from this batch. We have still more tomatoes. Oh, this down here is the winter sowing stuff that I never fully cleaned up. I will be doing a video in, I guess, December or maybe January, showing how I winter sow. Last year was my first year trying it, and it actually did really well for starting some flowers and like I said, that tomato, I forget what else, lettuce, a ton of lettuce. So I'm gonna try that method again and do even more this time. And then you may be wondering, do I have a fall garden? No, I do not. I dropped the ball on the fall garden. You may have seen, if you watched my channel before, I actually have a video, I think it was on July 1st, I was sitting on the porch planting my winter veggies, or my fall veggies, in this, what do they call this thing? In this tray. And they did sprout, but then I kind of neglected them. I never transplanted them because that broccoli bed was still going strong and I really had nowhere to put them. So I just kind of let it fall by the wayside, and therefore I do not have a fall garden. I need to figure out a way to manage the weeds and the overlapping seasons so that, you know, I can get my act together enough to get the spring broccoli out in well enough time to get the fall broccoli in. This year was a little overwhelming and I don't feel like my garden is really complete at all. So it didn't happen. I'm kind of bummed out because I love broccoli and I was looking forward to that, but oh well, next year, next spring. All right, now we're in the pumpkin patch. I have a enormous pumpkin here. It is still on the vine. I'm going to pick it this weekend. Hopefully it's flat enough on the bottom that I can put it out on the front porch. I don't think we're gonna carve it. It's just like, because I know how that'll go. I'll be the one who has to scoop it out. My kids are just gonna be all, let's carve it, and then they'll abandon me with the project. So that's how it usually goes. So I don't know, I might just keep it as a uncarved decoration. And then maybe, I don't know if this pumpkin's even good for getting pumpkin puree from, but we'll see. I might freeze dry some pumpkin to see how that goes. And over here we have more. This is one that the deer got to early on and it then scarred over. So it's still fine. I'm probably gonna give this one to my chickens to carve. And just, you know, that I'm sure lots of you have seen those videos where you just kind of scratch out a couple of spots where the eyes and the nose and the mouth would go. And that's where the chickens will peck at it and then ultimately sort of carve their own face into it. So definitely have to try that experiment. And then this one. This pumpkin got kind of a late start, but it grew way bigger than I expected. So I think it's the same type as that other huge one, or, you know, actually I think it might be different. Some of these plants were nursery plants because my pumpkins didn't really germinate as fast as I wanted them to. And so I kind of panicked and bought some nursery starts. I think that's what these regular orange ones are. And then these guys are the pumpkins I already harvested about a week or so ago. The green ones are supposed to be green. I really like those. And these orange ones, I don't even know what variety this is, but they're squatty and very, very dark reddish orange. They might be the same variety as that giant one, but I really don't know. But next year I'm gonna plant even more interesting looking pumpkins. And that's it for today. I have the day off, so I might spend some time out here. I am tempted to just try to put some carrot seeds in the ground, even though I really don't think they're gonna germinate at this point. It's getting colder, but you know what? I have the seeds, so might as well try. Probably will put some cilantro in the ground too, and just see. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.